My name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. When I was 5 years old, my parents, who are both pack-a-day smokers, told me that I shouldn't smoke. It was bad for me. Even though they continued smoking. And I got to admit to you that that was a moment of confusion for me. Because on the one hand, they were telling me not to do something that they themselves were continuing to do. If it was bad for me, it must be bad for them. And why would they continue to do something that was bad for them if they were telling me not to do it? It just didn't make any sense to me. Got me thinking about that saying, do as I say, not as I do. And I think there's a problem with that saying, because it imagines that words are communication, but actions aren't. And I think we would agree that words and actions are both forms of communication. Makes me think of that other saying, actions speak louder than words. You know, St. Francis of Assisi, almost 1,000 years ago, said this. He said, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. St. Francis obviously understood that actions were very powerful, in many cases more powerful than words. So whether you have words or whether you have actions, they are both important forms of human communication. I was out watering my lawn last week. I reseeded it maybe a month ago, and I was keeping the lawn moist to keep the grass growing well. It was early in the morning, and I looked up and I saw this young girl, maybe in grade 8, walking by. And her hair was nicely styled, and she was wearing this most beautiful and elegant dress. A kind of dress that I don't really see young girls wearing very often. And in that moment, I thought to myself, don't you look nice? And then I was walking back up a few moments later up to my front porch, and she had disappeared. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I tell her that? Why in that moment, when I had that feeling of warmth for her, that desire to celebrate just for a moment with her, why didn't I share that thought with her? I mean, in all fairness, I'm not a morning person. And it was 8:15 in the morning, and basically I was still half asleep. So I wasn't in the moment. I let the moment get away from me. But in truth, I think I'm asleep most of the time anyway. You know, there are moments in my day, maybe in late afternoon, when I'm more awake, and I've trained myself to let that inner praise and inner joy for other people that get out of me. In that moment, I may remember to celebrate someone by praising them. But so often I keep even that praise bottled up inside of me. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think we need to let that inner praise and celebration get outside of ourselves. At Trillium, we say that our mission here is to awaken the Christ light in each other and shine it in the world. There's something about light shining that warms the world up. It gets me thinking about that song, Hey Jude. There's a section in Hey Jude that goes like this. Anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude, refrain. Don't carry the world upon your shoulders. For well you know that it's a fool who plays it cool by making his world a little colder. That line got me thinking about a time when I went to the University of Toronto, my first year. I've only been there a few weeks, and I ended up doing a tour of the university with this young woman named Sharon. She was from out west, and I was from Hamilton, but we were both thrown together in this big city and this big university campus, kind of lost. We walked around the campus together looking at different buildings and kind of trying to orientate ourselves to the campus. And we chatted a lot about a lot of different things in life. And it was a wonderful sharing. And I remember about a month later going up into the library and seeing her there and going over and chatting with her. And Sharon said to me, what do you want from me? And I know in that moment I had this heartfelt yearning for her. I had this passion for her. I liked her. She was pretty smart. I had so many desires of praise inside of me for her. And yet I answered her this way. I said to her, I don't want anything from you. And in that moment I made the world colder by playing it cool. I played it cool with her because I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to suffer rejection. I didn't want to suffer rejection by misunderstanding or interpreting what she was asking me. So I played it cool, and I made the world a bit colder by playing it cool. And I'm looking back on that years later and realizing that what she wanted me to do was to warm the circumstance up, to share my heart with her, to tell her that I wanted her. And yet I didn't. And I have to admit to you that in those days, my forms of communication were so convoluted. My actions, my thoughts, my feelings were all convoluted. I had a hard time expressing direct emotion. And that, I think, made my world a lot colder, and certainly the world around me a lot colder than it needed to be. I think that we, in our lives, are playing it cool way too much, way too much. We need to get through the barriers of that playing it cool so we can share the warmth of Christ in our midst. That God has a passion, a yearning desire to warm the world up through us. Not physically warm, but spiritually and emotionally make our world warmer. It's a bit funny with communication. You know, it's one of the basic conundrums of life. And yet we were made for communication. Our very evolution as creatures was made for communication. Our very endowment by the Creator's mind and heart in us makes us rift for communication. In fact, the Bible says that we were made to be communication partners with God. And the big conundrum in life for us rests on the fact that we flee our basic communication with our Creator, with our source, that we're running away from our connection with God. We don't want to hear the God voice speak in us, and it moves through all other forms of communication in life. You know, when you think about it, success in life is so much rooted in communication with other people. Marriage is really a relationship of communication. And when marriage is cooled down, it's usually because the communication has broken down in the relationship. And that's true as parents. When our relationship with our children cool down, it's because it's really at its root a communication problem. Or with our employer, or with our coworkers, or with even the person on the street. It doesn't matter who it is. It's always about communication. You know, at Trillium, we have a core value that talks about communication. It says this: give generously of your time and talent. Give. Give is a form of communication. It's an extension of ourselves out into that world around us. And it's always in its implication about bringing a sense of warmth to the world that we are a part of. Generously comes from a Latin word which means noble birth. We are to extend communication from our highest nature. We're to live from our source as spiritual beings made like God. We are children of God. We share the one sonship of the Creator in the biblical sense. We are daughters and sons of God this day, and we're meant to extend communication from our highest nature. Give generously of our time and talent. These are the endowments that the Creator has given to us in our lives, and they're not meant to be held inside of us, trapped inside, bottled up. They're meant to be extended out in our lives through us to make that world that bit warmer and filled with love. In fact, we're meant to extend the warmth of love into the world we find. And I invite you today to think about when you're speaking with your partner, or when you're engaged in actions with your life partner, to think about how you might make that relationship warmer in character, or with your children. Extend love and warmth into that relationship, or with your coworkers, or your neighbor who lives on either side of you, or with someone you meet on the street. You have such great opportunities this day to make the world that bit warmer. Remember, it is a fool who plays it cool to make his world just that bit colder. Instead, play it smart. Let the warmth of your spirit this day make the world around you that bit warmer. Go in peace.